But 18 years, 19 years on TV doesn't change your life. It exposes you for the person that you really are.
That wasn't just commentary. That was a direct message to everyone listening.
I was a guest. I wasn't happy. Just saying, Norman.
You can see it happening in real time, the threat wrapped in a smile, the audience laughing. Wendy already knowing she's been warned.
Do I bite the hand that feeds me? Well, the answer is yes. Because who am I doing it for? Am I doing it for the 200 egos in the room, the most privileged people on the planet? Or am I doing it for the 200 million people around the world watching?
Ricky Gervais just connected every single dot. Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah Winfrey, Wendy Williams, the conservatorship, the Epstein files, and what he found is going to destroy everything the industry has been protecting for 20 years. The most dangerous woman in daytime television wasn't taken down by a scandal. She wasn't canceled by social media. She was systematically dismantled by two of the most powerful women in entertainment history. And she never saw it coming because the attack looked like friendship. Her name is Wendy Williams. For nearly 20 years, Wendy walked onto that stage 5 days a week, looked directly into the camera, and said exactly what she thought. No filter, no corporate approval, no fear. She talked about Diddy before the world knew who Diddy really was. She talked about closeted executives in the music industry back in 1998 and got fired from Hot 97 for saying it.
I'm not gay obsessed, and every other would be an exaggeration, but I would say 2 out of 10.
Okay.
That call cost her a job, but it didn't cost her her voice. She just kept going. She talked about parents handing their children over to predators for money. She talked about music executives using their power to exploit young boys. She talked about a culture of silence enforced not by law, but by fear. And here's what the industry understood very early on about Wendy Williams. She wasn't doing it for ratings. She wasn't doing it for controversy. She genuinely believed the public deserved to know the truth. And that kind of conviction, that kind of integrity, is not something you can negotiate with or buy off. It is a structural threat to an industry built on managed narratives and controlled silence. So they tried the Diddy approach first. In 2017, Diddy appeared on Wendy's show. On the surface, it looked like a normal celebrity interview. Two people, a couch, casual banter. But underneath that surface, something else was happening entirely. Something calculated, something dangerous.
The mother of a now 16-year-old.
Who I met backstage,
He did?
He's a great young man.
Listen to what just happened. Diddy didn't compliment Wendy's son. He announced that he had met him. He created a mental image. He made absolutely sure Wendy understood that he had visual access to what mattered to her most. And he did it live on national television. That is not a compliment. That is a message. That message says, we know where your family is. We know what matters to you. Act accordingly. But Wendy didn't act accordingly. She kept going. She kept speaking. She kept naming names. And that's when the industry escalated. That's when this stopped being about one radio host with a big mouth and started becoming something much more organized, much more deliberate, much more dangerous. Because the people who came for Wendy next weren't street-level thugs like Diddy. They were the faces of mainstream respectability. They were the women America trusted most. Ellen DeGeneres was one of the most powerful women in entertainment history. 19 years on daytime television, a platform that could make or break anyone who stepped onto that stage. Access to Ellen's show was currency. The right appearance at the right moment could rehabilitate a damaged image, shift public perception, and put millions of dollars into whoever Ellen chose to uplift. And Wendy Williams was one of the only voices in daytime media who was talking openly about what it cost to be in Ellen's orbit and what happened to the people who refused to pay. When Wendy said that Ellen had a dark side that the industry was trying to hide, she wasn't speaking in metaphors. She had experienced it personally, and what followed that statement was a calculated campaign to discredit her, isolate her, and eventually remove her from her own platform entirely. So what exactly happened on Ellen's set? According to multiple sources and based on the footage that exists, Ellen used the broadcast itself as a warning. Something was said on camera, framed as humor, wrapped in the language of daytime banter, that functioned as a direct threat. And the most chilling part is that it worked perfectly. Because when you threaten someone on national television wrapped in a smile and a laugh track, the audience just thinks it's entertainment. The person being threatened has no recourse. They can't react because any reaction reads as them being dramatic, oversensitive, difficult.
I was a guest. I wasn't happy. Just saying, Norman. And people called me out on it before I was able to say anything about it. Like,
That wasn't Wendy being oversensitive. That was Wendy recognizing that she had just been threatened on live television and knowing that the audience would interpret it as a joke. Ellen had perfected this move. She had 19 years of practice at it. This is exactly what Ricky Gervais has been pointing at for years, not just about Ellen specifically, but about the entire architecture of how power operates in entertainment. Now, here's where it gets deeper. Ellen wasn't just protecting herself when she went after Wendy. Ellen was protecting a network of people around her. A network that Ricky Gervais walked into the most visible room on earth and exposed. In 2020, at the Golden Globes, Ricky Gervais stood at that podium in front of every major filmmaker, actor, producer, and executive in Hollywood and did something nobody expected. He named Jeffrey Epstein.
Who do I pander to? The 200 richest people in the room, or the 200 million people watching at home who aren't winning awards, who aren't millionaires. And it was a no-brainer. I was doing it for them.
When Ricky said those words, the room didn't laugh. The room went very, very quiet. Because in that moment, every person who knew what Epstein represented, every person who understood the scope of what Ricky was implying, understood that they had just been publicly named. And they were right to be afraid. 5 years later, the Department of Justice released the Epstein files, the flight logs, the emails, the documentation of exactly who was connected to Jeffrey Epstein and how deep those connections went. Ellen DeGeneres moved in those circles. Not on the fringes, not as a distant acquaintance. She moved in them as a central figure. Her show was one of the most powerful platforms in daytime television history, and access to that platform was currency. But Ellen wasn't working alone. This is the part of the story that almost nobody is talking about, and it's the part that Ricky Gervais' recent statements point toward most directly. Oprah Winfrey. Think about the timeline. As Wendy's health declined and the industry began moving against her, Oprah was building partnerships with exactly the kind of media executives and production companies that were working to push Wendy out. The same daytime television infrastructure that replaced Wendy with a softer, more controllable host was the infrastructure Oprah had helped build and continued to profit from. In Oprah's world, safety means control. Safety means a host who will sit on that couch and say the things that have been pre-approved and ask the questions that make advertisers comfortable. Never, not once, look into that camera and start talking about what really happens behind closed doors. Wendy Williams was the opposite of safe, and Oprah, who built her empire on the appearance of dangerous honesty while carefully managing every word that came out of her studio, understood better than anyone what an uncontrollable truth teller like Wendy could do to an industry that depended on controlled narratives. But it's deeper than competition. It's about protection. Oprah Winfrey's name appears in the social architecture around the same circles that Ricky Gervais called out at the Golden Globes. Not in the Epstein files directly, but in the fundraisers, the foundation galas, the private dinners where the most powerful people in entertainment met without cameras present. Oprah was always in those rooms, and the people in those rooms had enormous interest in making sure that someone like Wendy Williams, someone who had already proven she would name names publicly without flinching, never got loud enough to start naming them. This is where the story becomes almost impossible to believe, because what they did to Wendy Williams next was something the entertainment industry had never done before at this scale. They didn't just fire her. They didn't just cancel her show. They went after her mind. They attached a mental health narrative to her name so effectively and so early that by the time Wendy started fighting back publicly, half the audience had already been primed to interpret everything she said as a symptom rather than a statement. A court-appointed guardian, forced medication, a medical diagnosis of dementia, a diagnosis that her own doctors later said was completely false.
Lying to me when they say I can go out and do what I want to do.
She never had dementia. The diagnosis that was used to strip her of her autonomy, remove her from her show, hand her platform to someone else, and keep her locked in a facility was fabricated or dramatically exaggerated and weaponized by the very people who needed her silent, and who had the power and the connections and the industry relationships to make that happen quietly without a single major media outlet investigating it properly. The same people Ricky Gervais has been pointing at for years. Think about what that conservatorship accomplished. It didn't just remove Wendy from television, it removed her ability to speak publicly. It removed her ability to leave facilities without permission. It gave someone else legal authority over her finances, her medical decisions, her voice. It was the final step in a playbook that the industry has perfected over decades. Now let's talk about Ricky Gervais, because his role in this story is unlike any of the other players. He's not a victim. He's not an executive. He's not a whistleblower in the traditional sense. He is something rarer and in many ways more powerful than all of those things. He is a man with nothing to lose who has been telling the truth in the most visible rooms on earth.
Do I bite the hand that feeds me? Well, the answer is yes. Because who am I doing it for? Am I doing it for the 200 egos in the room, the most privileged people on the planet? Or am I doing it for the 200 million people around the world watching who aren't winning a Golden Globe, who aren't multimillionaires? Of course I'm doing it for them. I'm the fat bloke on the couch eating potato chips watching this.
This deliberate outsider positioning is exactly what protected Ricky. He was never trying to be part of their world. He never wanted their approval. And because he didn't need what they were offering, they couldn't take anything from him. Wendy Williams needed her platform. Cher Shepherd needed her show. The machine understood this. You can only silence someone who has something to lose. But Ricky Gervais had already decided his integrity was worth more than any invitation they could offer him. And that made him immune to the playbook. Here's what's critical about this moment. The Epstein files changed everything. When the Department of Justice released the flight logs and the emails and the documentation of exactly who was connected to Jeffrey Epstein and how deep those connections went, it didn't just confirm what Ricky Gervais said at the 2020 Golden Globes. It validated the entire pattern that Wendy Williams had been describing for 20 years.
Hollywood mogul Casey Wasserman is selling his sports marketing and talent agency after his suggestive emails with Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell were revealed.
One of the most powerful talent agents in Hollywood, gone, because once those emails were public, once those flight logs were released, the wall of deniability that had protected everyone in that world started crumbling. And when walls crumble, the people hiding behind them start running. Ellen DeGeneres is now in the UK and has stated she plans to never come back to the United States. Other celebrities connected to these circles are also gearing up to leave. They're not doing it willingly. They know that they need to get out before the lawsuits start dropping. Talking about lawsuits, there are over 100 different lawsuits from different victims against Diddy alone. It's like everything Wendy said is being proven true in real time, but there's a darker dimension to this story that almost nobody is talking about. Because Wendy Williams wasn't the only person who paid a price for knowing too much. Two of the key witnesses against Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were Carolyn Andriano and Lee Sky Patrick. Both of them were named in legal documents. Both of them ended up dead years apart. Both ruled accidental overdoses, but connected by the same thread that runs through this entire story: the systematic elimination of anyone capable of turning private knowledge into public testimony.
Literally churns my stomach.
That's Dorothy Granert's Feeling, whose daughter, Carolyn, was recluded by Epstein when she was only 14 years old. According to her mother, the unimaginable acts that she lived in Epstein's mansion haunted her for years.
A wreck. Because she would disappear out of shame.
Carolyn Andriano left behind 5 children and her mother, both witnesses, both dead, years apart, both removed from the equation before they could become liabilities. Wendy Williams is still alive, but she is not free. And then came the thing that changed everything. Wendy's own medical team, ordered by her court-appointed legal team, conducted a new medical evaluation. That evaluation found something that demolished the entire foundation of her conservatorship. The diagnosis that was used to justify locking her away was false. The justification for the conservatorship that stripped her of autonomy, removed her from her show, and silenced her voice was a medical lie. And Wendy's family knows it. They know what happened. They know why it happened. And they are fighting through legal channels to get her out.
They are lying to me when they say I can go out and do what I want to do. This is my niece, Alex. She just flew in from Miami, okay? I just came from the hospital. So we are going out to celebrate. You know what I'm saying? Celebrate what? I don't know.
This is the part that Cat Williams explained and that Ricky Gervais has been screaming about in his own way for 15 years. There is a playbook. It is not accidental. It is not coincidental. It is a deliberate industry-approved system for neutralizing anyone who threatens the people at the top. And they ran the full playbook on Wendy Williams. Let her build. Let her get comfortable. Let her build an audience so large and so loyal that pulling her off the air would look suspicious. Let her say the edgy things because for a long time, edgy things are good for ratings. Identify the threat threshold. Wendy crossed it the moment she started connecting Diddy to child exploitation. She crossed it when she called out music executives by implication in 1998. She crossed it every single time she sat on that stage and said something that made one of those powerful people in that room reach for their phone. The medical angle, this is the one that distinguishes the Wendy Williams case from every other cancellation story in daytime television history. They didn't just fire her. They didn't just cancel her show. They went after her mind. They attached a mental health narrative to her name so effectively that by the time Wendy fought back, half the audience had already been primed to interpret everything she said as a symptom rather than a statement.
I just came from the hospital. So we are going out to celebrate. You know what I'm saying? Celebrate what? I don't know. I'm from the hospital. You know what I'm saying? And of life. And this is what has been done to us.
And now, here's what's new. Here's what's different about this moment. Ricky Gervais and Wendy Williams are finally connecting publicly. Ricky has been pointing at this pattern for years, naming it from the outside, from a position of safety where the machine has no leverage. And Wendy, from inside the system, has been experiencing it directly.
What made you think, you know what, I'm just gonna hammer him? I don't care what the...
Well, I thought, when they said, do you want to host the Golden Globes, all that stuff I said in the show was true. I said, I'm going to write my own jokes, right? And I thought, who do I pander to? The 200 richest people in the room, or the 200 million people watching at home who aren't winning awards, who aren't millionaires? And it was a no-brainer. I was doing it for them.
The pattern has become too visible to ignore, Ricky naming it from the outside, the Epstein files confirming it, the DOJ lawsuit logs showing exactly who was on those planes and in those rooms, Wendy fighting through the legal system to get her voice back. All of these threads are converging on the same point, and at the center of that point, still locked in a system designed to keep her quiet, is Wendy Williams. Her truth is still out there. It always has been, and it's only a matter of time before the people who tried to bury it have to answer for exactly what they did. It validated the entire pattern that Wendy Williams had been describing for 20 years. The wall of deniability started crumbling, and when walls crumble, people run. Ellen is in the UK, Casey Wasserman is gone. The machine is scrambling, because once those documents were public, once those flight logs were released, there was nowhere left to hide. And Ricky Gervais isn't letting them disappear quietly. This is what makes him uniquely dangerous to the people running this playbook. He doesn't need their platforms. He doesn't need their approval. He operates completely outside the machine, which means the machine has no lever to pull to shut him up. Right now, Wendy Williams is fighting to get out. Her own medical evaluation says she never had dementia. Her family is fighting through legal channels. Investigative journalists are finally starting to ask the questions that the industry spent years suppressing. And Ricky Gervais is still talking.
If I bite the hand that feeds me? Well, the answer is yes. Because who am I doing it for? Am I doing it for the 200 egos in the room, the most privileged people on the planet? Or am I doing it for the 200 million people around the world watching?
Every name she dropped, every claim she made, every moment where she looked into that camera and told the audience something that powerful people spent millions of dollars trying to keep quiet. That record exists. And every day that the Epstein files get deeper, every day that more lawsuits drop, every day that Ricky Gervais keeps talking, that record gets more relevant, not less. Wendy Williams may still be in that facility, but her truth is out here. It always has been. And it's only a matter of time before the people who tried to bury it have to answer for exactly what they did.